Hello, everyone. I'm Bradley Barth with SC Media and the Cyber Risk Alliance. Today, I'll be conducting a roundtable session with three esteemed winners of the 2023 SC Media Awards. Today, we'll be talking about some of cybersecurity's key trends and developments over the last year. We have a pretty versatile group of cyber solution providers represented here. So for some of you, I know the focus might be more about AI. For others, it'll be the cloud. For others, it'll be security awareness. It'll be interesting to see where this conversation goes. And so with that said, it's my pleasure to introduce our roundtable winners for the day. We have Peter Bauer, co-founder and CEO at Mimecast, winner of Best Email Security Solution. We also have Roger A. Grimes, data-driven defense evangelist at KnowBe4, which is winner of Best IT Security-Related Training Program. And finally, we have Theresa Lanowitz, Head of Cybersecurity Evangelism at AT&T Cybersecurity, which takes home the award for Best Threat Intelligence Technology. Congratulations to all three of you and your entire organizations. As always, we like to jump right into things, and so we'll start a little broad and then hone in on some more specific subject matter later. So let's begin with the overall state of the cybersecurity industry today. I want to know from each of you what you think right now about what some of the biggest trends or headlines have been in 2023. What interesting turns has the industry taken this past year? What's on your radar?
Well, one of the things I think that we're seeing is, and this is across the industry, is that cybersecurity has definitely moved from being a technical issue to being a business requirement. So it's no longer about those nefarious hackers in a hoodie sitting in the corner. It really is about enabling the business. And the other thing that we're seeing is that there's more inclusivity now in how cybersecurity is being referred to inside of organizations. And you look at things we hear all the time. DevSecOps. Suddenly, we're starting to bring dev into the picture, whereas before dev was, a little kind of saying we're not going to delve into security. We're starting to see more about the data lifecycle, and the data lifecycle is so important. And one of those things driving that is this move to edge computing. And with edge computing, you have applications that are completely different. You have new types of networks that are lower latency, higher bandwidth, faster than we've ever seen before, more inherent security. And all of that is saying that organizations really want to be able to deliver a digital-first experience for their customers, whether it's business to business or business to consumer, that digital-first awareness, data-driven, being able to understand how to protect and trust and use that data that's out there. So overall, I think there's more awareness. There's definitely a move to a new generation of computing with edge computing, and there's more of an expectation from the customer side, again, whether B2B or B2C, there's more expectations from the customer side that you're going to be safe, you're going to be secure in what you're actually consuming.
Yeah, I think from a threat landscape point of view, I've been doing computer security. I've earned all these gray hairs, been doing it since 1987. I think part of the surprising part is you may be hearing like these days, I think there's hardly a threat that doesn't have the word AI on the front of it these days. And last year it might have been something else, and years before that, cloud security or quantum or something. But really, what I'm amazed about is that over the decades, the same threats are really still the core threats, which mean, social engineering, where someone's being tricked into providing information or installing a Trojan horse program, unpatched software. Those two things have been the number one and number two threats since I got into computers and computer security in 1987, and continue to be. They're very strong, sticky things, and the vast majority of organizations would do well to try to decrease the ability of their employees to be scammed. Make sure that you patch your software, especially anything that's on the CISA known exploited vulnerability catalog list. And then you have, a few other things. You have eavesdropping and passwords and that sort of stuff. But I would say, the more people say that the threats change, like with AI and things like that, I'd be a little skeptical. I'd say I'd love to start seeing the attacks that are actually working using those things first. I would say that most people need to concentrate on the things that have been compromising them for decades and continue to focus on them until something changes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's interesting as I spend time talking to customers and prospects. Excuse me. And you try and get a sense of like what are their objectives? What are they really trying to accomplish? What's at the heart of their jobs? And what the pattern that emerges for me is whether they're CIOs or CISOs, their job is to provide continuous confidence in the digital workplace. And that's a multifaceted challenge. It turns out it's not as simple as it sounds. Just, particularly because that digital workplace now is the workplace. It's almost redundant to say digital. COVID kind of just moved us forward from being a physical workplace into a digital first workplace. Now, there's this really interesting thing in this digital workplace, which I refer to as the digital workplace paradox, which is our dependency on the digital workplace is growing dramatically. We can't really function without it. At the same time, the means to fabricate anything inside the digital workplace has equally growing dramatically. So, for example, I'm self-conscious in front of Roger now using the term generative AI, but all of these technologies that really have the ability to fabricate or create forgeries of digital artifacts. And in fact, we even on this call, we're all digital artifacts. Right now in 2023, we're still somewhat able to believe that Theresa is Theresa and Brad is Brad and Roger is Roger and this is me and this is not AI. But when we saw Apple, if you watch that Vision Pro launch, as part of that, they show you what happens when you put the goggles on or the headset on in a Zoom meeting. Well, it doesn't show to the other participants. So version 1 shows like an avatar of you, and that's cool. But it's a really interesting, almost, I think, inflection point that we're about to hit because version 1 is a cartoonish avatar. Version 4 might be a completely convincing image of you where you wouldn't really know who's wearing a goggle and who isn't. And that makes you realize, well, actually, if it can do that, it could turn you into anybody. You could have true geniuses on this call, even though the mere mortals, Theresa, Roger, and Peter are talking. We could be here representing sort of Einstein and other folks. And so that gives you a real sense of how things that we trust and need to trust in the digital workplace are entirely up for grabs as we wind forward. And that means that our CIOs and our CISOs are confronted by a very challenging landscape to be able to provide assurances and continuous confidence in this digital first workplace going forward. And when you start to unpick some of those things, there are just so many aspects of how do you build that confidence that have to be taken care of. And I think it's a really interesting challenge of our time.
I'd like to go back.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to go back and double click on something that Roger said and just really reinforce how important awareness really is. So in our 2023 AT&T Cybersecurity Insights Report, it's our annual thought leadership research, and it's vendor neutral. It's completely forward-looking and independent. But we asked our survey participants, 1,418 people from around the world, and we said, what are your biggest perceived attacks that you're concerned about? The number one thing that came back in 2023 was DDoS. So back to Roger's point, everything that's old is still out there. The things that you have had to defend in the past are still out there, and they may switch them up. So DDoS was our number one concern. Business email compromise was our number 2 concern. And in 2022, ransomware ranked right at the top of the list. But in 2023, ransomware was number 8 out of 8. And one of the things that we also identified through this insights report is that the culture around security inside of the organization is changing. And as we democratize computing even more, we start to deliver these digital first experiences, we start to see the need for security controls that people may have said in the past, well, I'm not too interested in that. And what we found is that the more edge use cases people have, so the more they're looking at machine-to-machine communication, the more they are concerned about those cybersecurity controls. So patching, Roger mentioned patching. Patching is one of those things that our survey participants said, we're not too keen on patching. But as you look to a world really controlled by IoT type of devices, patching becomes incredibly important. So there's this shift inside of security organizations just across the board to a more mature way of thinking and a way of looking at all of those attacks that are out there that are prevalent and understanding how the adversary may work in common in conjunction with one another and understanding which of those attacks may be pertinent for a particular vertical market and so on.
Yeah, really interesting point, Theresa. And what I was just going to say before is, isn't it interesting that, in an industry that changes so frequently, that some of these very human concepts remain the same today as they have over the years, concepts like trust, confidence, awareness of some of these time-tested social engineering techniques, buy-ins, the buy-in from executives, buy-in from your developer team. These are all things that the three of you mentioned in your initial answer. Those are constants in a world of otherwise change in the cybersecurity industry. So really interesting that all of those themes were prevalent in your answers. Just one more question about overall themes and observations from the past year. Were there any particular new threat vectors / exploits / attack campaigns that really jumped to mind as a highlight over the past year in terms of, this is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on as we move into 2024. This is the start of a new concerning trend. And conversely, on the innovation / defense side, is there anything that you're optimistic about as we transition from 2023 to 24?
Yeah, I'll add two things. I saw two big observations that really caught my eye. One was how successful spear phishing is. There's all kinds of ways that you can be scammed and phished and socially engineered. But a lot of surveys are showing that spear phishing, which is where the attacker has some sort of insider knowledge of a project or you or your company, that even though spear phishing only makes up like 1 or 2% of email scams, it makes up like 60, 70% of the successes. So that you need to make your employees aware that about spear phishing and how it is, has a greater chance of being successful. So that was one big observation. That was amazing. I knew spear phishing was a problem. I didn't know it was 60, 70% of the problem. And the other thing, going back kind of to patching, which Theresa was talking about, was, it used to be that we didn't know how people got exploited or we didn't know really what they attacked. But now we kind of know because of the CISA, Known Exploited Vulnerability Catalog list. It goes, hey, these are the things. So last year, there's 20,000 different exploits that could have been used, but only about 4% of exploits are ever used by bad people to exploit a company in the real world. And CISA has that list. But what stuck out to me is how much of it isn't Microsoft software. It used to be the conventional wisdom was, you got to make sure your Microsoft machines are patched or something like that. But it turns out that a lot of it are your routers, your firewalls, your load developers, or load balancers, that a lot of the software patches that we're seeing aren't the Microsoft stuff. It's kind of the hardware, firmware stuff, and that's being used by attackers all the time. It's, or it could be a file transfer gateway, or it could be a component of a, open source component of some other, product that you use. So I'd say, the patching picture, definitely pay attention to the CISA Known Exploited Vulnerability Catalog list, because that tells you what you need to patch for sure.
Yeah, and patching is now, just to kind of dovetail a little bit on your point, patching is really now, it's automated, it's proactive. It's not this sort of reactive manual activity that we've had in the past. The patching solutions are out there and they're really, really good. And what we're also seeing is the attack surface is expanding without a doubt. So that attack surface expanding says that organizations really need to be able to take inventory of what they have attached to their network, what that is actually doing. Is it in use? You know, we're coming to the point now with these IoT devices where we were several years ago before the cloud, where every developer had a server under their desk, and that server, people didn't even know those servers existed. So the IT community was then kind of caught off guard when they realized all these servers were out there. And I think we're running into that same sort of thing with these IoT devices that are just proliferating out there one after another, because we may have experimental programs and forget to decommission them. So this idea of the world of IoT is really critical. But looking at that expanded attack surface, what we're really going to need and what we're starting to see is more relevant threat intelligence. So that threat intelligence, and one of the things we do at AT&T Cybersecurity with our Alien Labs team, our threat intelligence unit, is they work with OTX, the Open Threat Exchange. So there's this idea of saying, you know, there's more collaboration in the industry now, and we need more collaboration because you can't go it alone. And this is true for bringing in a trusted third-party advisor to help you work on your problems. This is true for working with the Open Threat Exchange. The Open Threat Exchange has 235,000 cybersecurity professionals from around the world who submit indicators of compromise. And our AT&T Alien Labs team, they take those indicators of compromise and they enrich them through machine learning, and they're able to then fuel that in threat intelligence into our security operations centers, our 9 global SOCs that operate around the world. So this idea of using third party as trusted advisor, the idea of more communication and collaboration internally across those cross-functional teams, but also bringing in that third party to help, is something that is really critical. And I think we're starting to see a lot more of that.
Yeah, I want to just pick up on kind of a point I think Theresa and Roger have made. But, you know, Roger spoke about spear phishing, and, you know, it really is when somebody's in that trusted work environment, because, you know, you turn on your work computer every day or you go into that environment, you expect it to be authentic content. Unlike if you go to sort of Twitter or YouTube, you know, there's all kinds of crazy going on there. But the ability to go into your work environment and have confidence in what's there, we assume that, we have to assume that, but that is not free. And what's interesting is the opportunity when something bad has happened. Once there's a known phishing attack and you bring in the brilliant incident response people to come and have a look and examine kind of what happened, and you do the forensic and you look back, they eventually piece it together and they go, oh, okay, over here there was a vulnerability and there was a this and that. So they build that picture retrospectively. And I think the real opportunity is how are we able to leverage technology to almost build that forensic picture in real time and make it preventative rather than it being sort of something that you find out after the fact. And that's, I guess, the promise of AI, to be able to, while something is in motion, as the risk of a combination of things that might be loosely connected starts to rise, so there are interventions that could prompt users to be a little bit more aware, or a little bit more cautious of something, or could hold content back from that digital workplace environment, or register with a SOC team, or in fact, to Theresa's point, triangulate with threat intelligence that may not be available within that context, but has been available elsewhere to help inform that risk picture. So I think it's I always find it interesting, you know, you solve the crime afterwards. How can you use that information to be preventative in real time when you see something developing?
And that's, you know, Peter, that's just really getting smarter about how we as an industry really approach cybersecurity. It's no longer just about, oh, we have these point tools to do whatever it is that we're doing. It's about looking collectively at all the evidence that we have. It's about making sure, as Roger has alluded to, making sure that there's proper awareness training so people are aware of things such as social engineering, so people are aware of things such as do not click on this link. And as we move to this idea of edge computing, where we're getting away from being tethered to a keyboard, where information is just being presented to us. And if we look at use cases such as using robots or drones, for example, in a hospital setting to deliver supplies to a nurse's station, or to disinfect a room after a patient leaves, or as we look at smart buildings, it's no longer just about being tethered to the laptop. And the adversary, they certainly have figured out how to attack those endpoints, and those endpoints need to be secured as well. And one of the things we found in our AT&T Cybersecurity Insights Report research is that 48% of organizations today, they say that for their endpoints, for edge computing, they're using traditional types of endpoints. So tablets, laptops, phones, desktops. But what they also said is that in the near future, within the next 3 to 5 years, they're going to be using a lot more drones, a lot more robots, a lot more wearables in the healthcare area specifically. So our endpoints are going to change as well. So that all needs to be protected. And so it becomes very, very big, and we have to collaborate and communicate as effectively as we can.
Each of your own respective companies have areas of expertise that you specialize in. So there are various trending areas of cybersecurity over the last year that each of you are individually passionate about. So with our remaining time, I'd like to address a couple of those areas that hit on your specialties. So I'll address one for each of you to weigh in on. So, Theresa, for you, I wanted to ask you a little bit about evolution of the cloud and also edge computing. So I'd be curious, we're in a place right now where, cloud security became even more important in the era of COVID, as even more workers started working remotely from home. Some of those workers are now moving back in-house into the office, but certainly hybrid or work from home is not going anywhere entirely. So recently in 2023, how would you say priorities around cloud security are changing again? Just looking at from a coverage perspective of a lot of things that we've been talking about lately at SE Media, we've been talking about everything from cloud native development and container security to that shared responsibility model and how that's evolving, zero trust in the cloud, and certainly edge computing practices as well. So what's top of mind for you in terms of the most significant ways the cloud and cloud security has evolved over the last year?
Yeah, cloud security continues to evolve, and it becomes increasingly important as we move to the edge. So as we move to the edge, we have applications, use cases that are software defined. The workloads, the hosting, it's closer to where that data is being generated and consumed. So it's all about data, and it's where that data is going to be sent back to. So in many cases, think of an autonomous vehicle will be sent back to that vehicle, but that cloud storage is also incredibly important for the storage of that data. And then the other thing is that the edge really represents a distributed model of management, intelligence, and network. So cloud plays right into that. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're really on this precipice of a new generation of computing, which is really underpinned by lower latency, higher bandwidth networks, different types of applets. Those applets are ephemeral. They come together to form something on an as needed basis. And it's about being able to deliver that digital first experience. So cloud security continues to evolve, needs to continue to evolve. And as you're thinking about cloud, you need to really start thinking about edge and looking at how you're going to secure all of those new endpoints that are out there, how you're going to help manage that new attack surface that's out there, what you're going to do internally to generate awareness and so on.
Just as a quick follow-up question for you, Theresa, since you've obviously talked about the edge quite a bit, can you explain how classic network architectures have been rendered less effective or even obsolete by today's realities where so much is going on at the edge? And if you do feel that way, how can you modernize or help organizations modernize accordingly?
Yeah, and you mentioned it when you said that there are so many people now who are in a hybrid work situation. And I think that was the first best use case of saying, all right, our sort of castle and moat type of network architecture really doesn't work any longer. So enter the word SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, and you suddenly start to say, okay, everything that I'm collecting cannot, because it's too inefficient, be backhauled to the data center. So we want to really focus on modernizing our network. We want to focus on a unified security approach that says that it doesn't matter if I'm working from within the four walls of my corporate office, if I'm working at home, if I'm working in a coffee shop, or if I'm working in a vacation rental somewhere where I happen to be. You want to make sure that that user is secure. So then we start to bring in things such as zero trust, which says we have to make sure that this person says who they are. We have to authenticate. So the move to work from home really accelerated that need to really revolutionize or modernize network infrastructure and network architectures. And we're going to see that continue to be the case as we move to edge with more of these things that are going to require immediate feedback in that digital first world.
All right, Roger, security awareness question for you. What would you say is the biggest gap right now in most organizations' security awareness / training programs? What are some of the more recent tactics and techniques that should be incorporated into whether it's a phishing simulation or your awareness reports that maybe not enough organizations right now are up to date on?
Yeah, so not enough organizations do it at all. So you have a ton of organizations out there that don't do it at all. And the vast majority of people that do it kind of as a compliance effort once a year. And our data, we've looked at a lot of data for over 13 years, shows that doing it once a year has the same utility as just not doing it. You know, people don't, you've got to do it more frequently. So we recommend people do security awareness training at least once a month. That would be kind of a sweet spot, and that you're also doing simulated phishing tests to see how well people are uptaking the security. You know, you're trying to create this healthy culture of skepticism so that when people see an unsolicited message, no matter how it arrives, whether it's email or messaging or a phone call or even in person or something, that they've got in the back of their mind that if this person is requesting something that could be harmful to me or my company's interests, that I'm just going to verify it before I continue to do it. Because right now, unfortunately, you know, the way that our world is, you just can't trust the digital world. Sometimes you can't trust the real world when people are coming up to you. So you have to, you have to verify and trust. So that's what I would say to most people, is that if you want to be successful in your security awareness training programs, do a lot more of it. And again, we think kind of the sweet spot is about once a month. Change up the training, do humorous stuff, do repetitive stuff. You want to kind of train like people market on TV. If you notice, the commercials that you either love or hate on TV are always constantly forever being recycled. You're like, man, that's the 10th time I've seen that commercial this hour. But there's a reason why they're doing it. It's because it works. Well, you kind of want to do your training that way. You want to train like you're a marketer, being entertaining, repetitive, but also making sure you get good information out there. And the end result is you're trying to get a healthy culture, a culture of healthy skepticism in your environment, to be aware of common types of scams, how to detect them, what to do if they see them, and how to report them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, verifying, which is certainly important. And in those situations too, where an employee is observant enough to realize this email, let's say, that I received is definitely a scam. It's great if they recognize that. It's great if they delete it, but even more so, you'd love for them to report it, so that if it's also going into the inboxes of other members of your organization, somebody else that may not be so observant, they get rescued by the person that did actually spot it in the first place. So reporting is also an important aspect of the training regiment as well.
Yeah, I've actually seen big phishing campaigns where, coming from another country, where they're trying to get into a company, and thousands of people have received the same message, the same email. And it wasn't until like the 1,000th person reported it that they knew they had this ongoing thing. And if only one person reports it, they think, oh, this one person had a phishing email. But finally, when more people start to report it, they can go, hey, this is something larger. We need to warn people and search for the email and extract it and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and Peter, for you, I want to talk a little bit about AI and sort of AI meets email security. I know this is an area that you were particularly passionate talking about. We look at AI from almost both sides of the spectrum. It can be used maliciously by cyber criminals to enhance their social engineering techniques. In fact, we heard recently, I know of a new tool that's supposed to help clean up the grammar of various phishing emails to make them look much cleaner with their syntax and no typos, which of course are one of the typical telltale signs that you would find in a phishing email. Might be a little harder to spot them if they're written cleaner, but at the same time, they can also be used for good. They can help with detection of malicious campaigns. So it's that sort of good AI versus bad AI battle. Where are things as it currently stands in this area as of September 2023?
Can I tell you next month?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So here in August, look, I think it's true that AI can have tremendous benefits, but it affords a productivity gain to those bent on deception. And we have to be able to equip organizations to deal with deceptive artifacts in the environment. And like Theresa described, there's the zero trust strategy, which deals with kind of infrastructure level stuff and application level stuff about, are you continuously verifying who's on the network or on this particular network, where you can't deal with a network because it's not inside your control. What are the other parts of the layers of connectivity or access, and how do you verify those? Is this machine meant to have contact with this thing? So it's a constant pursuit of authenticity and validation. Now, when you get inside the world of digital workplace content and interactions, it's the same discipline that you start to apply there. And we learned a great deal about doing this inside email, because email is probably example number one, where it's quite trivial to fabricate the display name of somebody. I could probably, if you gave me 60 seconds, I could go and create a Gmail account, set up an address, and then send you an email. It would appear in your inbox, which would say it's from Bill Gates. And that's deception number one. Obviously, now we have a lot of technologies that look at that, and it's a combination of interrogating the communication for its validity. As Roger said, making sure somebody is equipped to go, well, hang on, is it really Bill Gates? And have you trained and alerted them to that? So it's a combination of machines and people sort of trying to create that zero trust effect inside the collaboration environment. And very valuable, because for a human being, it's unremarkable that a human being goes, oh, okay, so you're a Nigerian prince. I know you're lying. The reality is attackers are the successful attacks, which I think Roger drew attention to. It's not so much volume, it's what's actually working, are a lot more subtle. And sometimes technology can convict those by comparing it with, looking at the forensic kind of provenance of an artifact. But sometimes it really does take a suspicious mind or a keen eye of a person to go, I'm not sure either, but this worries me, push a button, and then it gets dealt with in a different risk category. So this idea of communication security and people security and data security really coming together, it's a fascinating, multifaceted thing. And, I would think of it as zero trust coming all the way down to almost the content artifact or the interaction level. And how do you apply healthy skepticism without disrupting productivity in that environment? That's the challenge.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting take on it for sure there, Peter. Yeah, well, great. Well, I think I wanted to make sure that everybody weighed in a little bit on their area of specialization. And of course, also wanted to talk about some overall trends. I said we wanted to paint a picture of what some of the current trends are in the cyber arena. And I think we've done that quite successfully today. So I think we're going to leave it there and wrap this roundtable up. But before we go, I'd like to thank Peter Bauer with Mimecast, Roger A. Grimes from KnowBe4, and Theresa Lanowitz with AT&T Cybersecurity for joining us. Once again, congratulations to your respective companies. This has been Bradley Barth reminding you that you can find a full list of our SC Award winners at scmagazine.com. In the meantime, thanks for watching.